recommending women authors part 2. If you want a part 1, you can go here, and I'll also link it down below. But this is basically female authors that I think everybody needs to add to their TBR, because even though we're in a day and age where a lot of women are now stepping into this genre, still it is inundated with men, and a lot of people I see, especially in the epic fantasy genre, most of the time it's all men every month. And even people who I've had discussions with, who respect women, who are all of this, they look back and they go, oh yeah, I didn't realise this. So they ask for recommendations. So here are my recommendations for women to add to your TBR. You can never go wrong with V.E. Schwab. She will have a book that you will like. This is Standalone Gallant. There's the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. There's the Darker Shade of Magic series. She's got a couple of older standalones that I haven't read yet. The Near Witch, Savage Song, might be duologies. She just writes in YA, middle grade, adult. This is a YA, middle grade and adult kind of vibe going on here. All age fantasy is what I call it. So I'm going to tell you about Gallant because it's my favourite one. And she does have a book coming out this year that I got approved for the arc, and I'm still fucking blown away. I got approved for a V.E. Schwab arc. Pam Macmillan, if you see this, thank you so much. I'm dying inside. Dying inside. I'm that cool. I'm not cool in the slightest. Not. But this is basically, it reminds me of Haunting of Hill House without being spooky. I know. So, Olivia Pryor, who is a mute, right? A mute. Which I love how V.E. Schwab wrote this with that representation, because Olivia Pryor may be a mute, but she's not quiet. If people turn their back on her because they realise, oh, I can just ignore your hand signals, she will break something. She'll get a flash, she'll smash it, she'll make you look at her, she'll make herself heard. Love that for her. But she is living in the house of Mair Alys because she was left there as a child. And she doesn't know who her mother and father is, but all she had was a diary with the letter D on it. So she doesn't even know her mother's name. And one day she gets a letter delivered to Mair Alys, inviting her back from her so-called uncle. So off she trots, all the way, miles away, to Gallant. But what is creepy is, in her mother's journal, there is a letter to Olivia. Olivia, 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 you will be safe as long as you stay away from Gallant. And she's going straight there. She turns up. People have no idea who she is, no idea why she's there. The uncle who so-called wrote the letter died a year ago. And she's starting to uncover a couple of things, because there's this Gallant, but there's also another Gallant at night. Across the wall, a flip as you will, with death living on the other side. I'm going to leave it there. I could talk for ages about this book. Look, love this book so fucking much. I bought 3 fucking special editions for it, right? This is the Forbidden Planet. This is the Luma Crate. This is the Waterstones, right? And just look at it. Just, if you do me a favour, go read Gallant. It's a standalone. I fucking loved it. And I'm going to quickly tell you about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, because I know not a lot of people like it, but I enjoyed it. Basically, there is the wrong type of gods, shall we say, and there's one of the main character, Addie LaRue, to escape a marriage she's going into, her life, she prays to the wrong god, and she wishes that and things go wrong, so nobody can remember her. She lives forever, but nobody will remember her until she meets a guy called Henry who does. This tale is so beautiful. I cried. I absolutely cried through Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. The relationship that she has with Henry, how they both learn that they've both made a deal with this guy, how Luke, who's the god guy, his relationship with Addie, it's just, especially how V.E. Schwab writes, how it can be lyrical but not too purple, and it can fit the story, and it's just, and the characters, and everybody just needs to try for each book. She's not my favourite author. I wasn't a massive fan of Darker Shade of Magic series. I wasn't a massive fan of Darker Shade of Magic series. It was entertaining as I was reading it, but it wouldn't be something I'd reread all the time. Gallon and Invisible Life of Ada LaRue I adore, and I'd reread them to the day that the books broke from my hands. This also might be a auto-buy author. Possibly. And that is Genevieve Kornacek, The Weaver and the Witch Queen. And I've also read The Witch's Heart. The Witch's Heart is Anna Bogger retelling. Loki appears, all of this kind of... That fucking had me crying at work listening to the audiobook. Like, literally full-on tears. And I just... Oh. And then this story is about, there was a pact with some women as they were children. If anybody was ever in danger, they'd always come. And then later on, they sort of drifted apart. They sort of weren't really that close anymore. And then one of them goes missing. So one of them decides to go to the others and basically says, we need to go. We need to help this person. We need to do something. And there's a lot of things and history between them, how they fell out and everything's going on. There's one of the character we follow enlists a man and uses marriage to kind of get him to help, and everything going on. And through the beginning of this, I was a bit like, not really sold. Okay, fuck the ending. I brought it back. Like, beginning not quite so sold. Then I got more and more into it as you went along. But the ending literally just brought it together, and I almost cried. So Genevieve Kornacek is going to be an auto-buy author for me, because everything she writes, it's just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. An epic novel about magic, sisterhood, and the bonds that can both bind and break us. The story stayed with me long after I finished reading. It's definitely true. If you're into YA, if you like Arthur's retellings, if you even like Harry Potter, it kind of fits. Don't ask me why, but it does. Legendborn, Tracy Dion. This is an Arthurian retelling, but modernised and following a black woman. I never expected to like this as much as I did when I first started it, but they had the Knights of the Round Table and they had their descendants, and each of the descendants they kind of get this kind of power and they kind of wake up to this. So you have Bree, who is a descendant, I'm not going to say of who, but she also has, if I'm remembering right, it's been a while, I believe she also has another tie to witch magic as well on top of this, which is incredible. There's a lovely romance going on here. There's deception. It's kind of dark academia because she's going back to school. There's grief because she's recently lost her mother. All of that going through this, and it's just... Everyone just needs to read Legendborn. Book 3 is dropping this year. You bet my bottom dollars I'm going to be talking about it. Look, technically this is sci-fi, but I met the author, Emily... fuck's sake. Esme Jenkins Pearson. I'm sorry. Jackie Pearson. What is with me with names? I can't do them. Anyway, I met the author of The Principles of Moments at Goldsboro Fantasy in the Core. Got chatting, and I was like, oh, dang. And she went, oh, try it. Yeah, I think you'll like it. Like, you like my book because of this, and this. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because I think, had I bought it by that point? No, I don't think I had bought it by that point. One or the other. But I also met her again at Welcome, and she was right. I liked her book. I totally I did it on audio. One of the narrators was just... The other two were fine. I really enjoyed this. There's time travel. There's gayness. There's secrets upon secrets. So yeah, bearing in mind the gay relationship is with the guy who can time travel and the Prince of England. Yeah. That's a minor part of what is in this book. It spans so many years, so much stuff going on, and it's something that somebody who's not into sci-fi, I definitely suggest you try this first as like your introduction to sci-fi, because I was shocked at how entertaining this was. I was like, oh, okay, am I a sci-fi girly now? And quite possibly. I cannot not mention Babel. I know I haven't got the dust jacket on this. This is Fairy Loot? Yes, it's Fairy Loot. Why does... Oh, that's just her that's her signature. For a second I thought it said Riley. It doesn't, it's just her signature. But this is by R.F. Kuang. Everybody knows R.F. Kuang from the Poppy War. Poppy War is brutal. If you're going into that, do check trigger warnings. But this is Dark Academia. This is a standalone. This is almost should be read by everybody else, because it's about how the magic system is kind of centered a lot around language, but the core of the story is sort of how the English use the Chinese, especially their children. And it's brutal in that kind of sense, and how they sort of stand up, how they are, you know, viewed from society, like upper class society, how they are treated when they go to the school, and the main character Robin, and how people are trying to sort of stand up and use the magic system and against the upper class, basically, and how everything happens, and the ending. And I knew from the beginning that's how it was going to end. I knew. It still broke my heart. But it's one of those ones I definitely think you need to read. River Enchanted. People don't talk about Rebecca Ross enough. Well, they do, because they talk about Divine Rivals, but they don't talk about this. This is something that people might say is a romance. It's not really. It's more of a fantasy with romance woven within, not actual fantasy romance. But you can read it as an epic fantasy reader even if you don't like romance. You can. So there is a bard in this, and he is called back to this island because things are going wrong. Being a bard, he's able to sing to the spirits of this island. But there's this part of the island, another part of the island, and they're kind of at war, kind of, but not fully. And children start going missing. And then it's multi POV. So then you have a stepmother of a child who the child goes missing, and the stepmother is absolutely distraught over this, and how her and her husband are talking through this, because it is his child, is how they deal with it as well. It's just it's well done. I loved every second of it. It feels like I'm living a fairy tale as I was reading this book. So everybody just needs to go read it. Please go read more Rebecca Ross. And then also read Divine Rivals, because I read that thinking that wouldn't take me by storm, and I read it in a day, and I remember finishing it and just thinking to the floor, like, what do I do with my life right now? Yeah, is this a theme? This could be a theme. If you like Sapphic and if you like revenge, you're going to like Tatashiri. This is book one. This is book two. Sorry, I've lent book one to a friend, and the book one is Jasmine Throne. This is very Indian retelling. This has one of my favourite characters, Bukimia, to the point that every time I type Bukimia, my phone automatically corrects it to cap locks. Because every time I talk about Bukimia, I'm screaming about her. She is basically married and has a baby to kind of a suppressor, kind of not, right, to a man. But she uses her position and her manipulation tactics as a woman to have power and to get her way. But she is part of the magic people that are kind of suppressed, that shouldn't really be around. Same as Priya, who again is another main character. But then you have Nalini, who's on the cover of this, who is... she was meant to sacrifice herself for the god that she was chosen, and she said no. And her brother, like the prince, sultan person in power, king, whatever, said, well, as punishment, I'm going to banish you to this place. You can live in this old temple, and not allowed to see anybody, do anything. It's everybody who cares for her works for her brother, and she is it's a kind of weird torture. You know, no one's raising their hand to her, but she's shunned. She's not allowed this. She's not allowed to talk, and it's all going on. And then she meets Priya, And Priya is somebody who's quiet, but she is one of the temple children of this particular place, and she's gone back there. She is learning more about the magic that they have, because it's about forest and stuff, and their gods, because they were all slaughtered when I was a kid and she sort of escaped. So she's hiding all of that on top of everything else and everything that's going on. And then there's like an illness going around as well that pertains from kind of the magic system, kind of just the forest, kind of just the gods. And it's about revenge. It's sapphic as hell, and it's just, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I had to mention Jen Williams. This series, Women Flamed series, has dragons, has these weird spider villainous creatures, has a kind of vampire kind of thing going on, has relationship, has a character called Vintage who takes no shit. She's older, middle-aged, and she is like blunt as anything, but she's an explorer. She's also a philosopher. She's a scholar. These vampire-like creatures, basically, they used to get their magic from this kind of tree, but the tree is dying, so no longer can get their like immortality kind of thing coming from there. So they go to drinking blood. But come with that is sometimes you can get an illness from it, and nobody knows how to cure it. So that's going on. And then you have the city of Abora, once glittered with gold, now its streets are stalked by wolves. Tourmalin the Oathless has no taste for waiting to die, while the realm of his ancestors falls to pieces. Talk about a guilt trip. When eccentric explorer Vintage offers him employment, he sees a way out, even when they are joined by a fugitive witch. With a tendency to set things on fire, the prospect of facing down monsters and retrieving artifacts is preferable to the abomination left behind. But not everyone is willing to let the empire collapse, and the adventurers are soon drawn into a tangled conspiracy of magic and war. The Duelia are coming, and the 9th reign must fall. So every so many years, they get a reign. So 1st reign, 2nd reign, 8th reign, this is the 9th reign. The fugitive witch is, she was kind of in this nunnery kind of place, this kind of school, very, very strict. Because, again, I think she was believed to maybe have found out that she had these powers and they sort of tried to suppress them and all this kind of stuff. But then she leaves, rightly so, because that was a horrible place with indoctrination and everything going on. And then comes across Vintage and Tourmaline, who's the vampire kind of creature. And they go on these adventures, and it's very moving. I love the characters. There is, like, griffins, eagles type things. There is dragons. It has a dragon. Spiders type creatures, and it was amazing. I binge read these back to back with the narration of Jot Davis. Jot Davis can narrate me anything. I will love it. He can read out a shopping list and I'll rate that 5 stars. Everybody go read Jen Williams. She's incredible. Let's have a quick look through my audio library. One that isn't on my that I think these are women, maybe, I'm not so sure, is the House Witch series by Del McCark. No, you know what I mean, it's up there. Which is a cozy romantic fantasy, and it's a house witch. What is a house witch? I'm going to tell you. It is where a witch will only have their powers in somewhere they consider home. So this witch he travels to this kingdom and applies to become this cook for the king. And nobody really knows he's a witch, right? He doesn't really want people to know. People they don't have always a favourable look on witches, but not as bad as some things. So he becomes the castle cook, and he works on his own. He uses magic, but then some people, like the king, discover who he is, and he's like, well, I will keep your secret, and he ends up doing stuff for the king, and there's a romance that kind of brews with it, and it's sort of forbidden, and it's just cute and sweet, and I just love it. Miss Percy's Pocket Guide books. I will never shut up talking about these books. These are dragons. This is cozy. This is set in a quaint English town in a Victorian era, and this middle-aged woman, again, we need more books with elderly women in it. Middle-aged woman is gifted a rock, or inherited a rock, that later turns out is dragon egg, and it hatches, and she now has a dragon. No idea how to care for the dragon, and the dragon is now wreaking havoc on this quaint little village, and she's trying to stop it, while also keeping a secret that she owns a fucking dragon. Also, there's a cute cinnamon roll vicar, and oh, it's amazing. 2 books are out so far, which kind of, I want to say, concludes it, but I hope not, because I'd read a 10-book series about this. I really would. Okay, you cannot go wrong with Tea Kingfisher. There's so much stuff. A Wizard's Life to Defensive Baking. A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, which is a cozy book where anything she bakes can come to life, which is kind of cool. There is Nettle and Bone, which a demon-possessed chicken, which is kind of cool. Rhyme and Roses, which is like a retelling on Beauty and the Beast. What else? There's What Feasts the Night, which is really, really kind of creepy, and I really, really enjoyed. I've not read the book 2 of duology of that yet. You just can't go wrong with Thornhead, which I thought was entertaining. She does a lot of standalones, so you can just dive in anywhere with Tea Kingfisher. Really, I just recommend her. Morgan Is My Name, which is by Sophie Keach. I went into this book expecting something a bit different than what it was giving, but it's basically the story of Morgana. And I adore Morgana, especially in the show Merlin, like not just with like the mythology that comes with it. I also love the idea of her, that mythology of her, but the show Merlin, Morgana, I wanted her to win. But I also, with Merlin and Arthur, I loved them as well. So I was like torn. But I did want her to win. I love Morgana so much that if anybody tells me they have a Morgana retelling or their book is based off Morgana or anything, I will read it. I will devour it. How the fuck could I forget Robin Hobb? What am I like? It's the excuse to show my first edition of Royal Assassin. Not in bad nick. You can thank Hardy's Books for this, because my dad got me this for my birthday, for Christmas. And title page, first edition, proving it. But Queen Robin Hobb, you cannot go wrong with Robin Hobb. Like, you can start with Farseer, like you start with Assassin's Apprentice and you can read through it linearly, as most people do. Me, I did it backwards. I started with False Faith. So it was False Assassin, which is the first book in the last trilogy. I didn't know it was part of a series, so I was like quarter way through it and I went, oh fuck it, just gonna keep reading. So I read the first 2 of that, and then I went back and got Assassin's Apprentice, and then loved that, and then read through all of Fitz's stories. And the last book I read, which was Assassin's Fate. Assassin's Fate. Took me a year to read it because I was so broken up and terrified about the book, and then it just destroyed me, and I haven't been able to reread it since. So, but The Whole Road and the Elderlings is a 16-book series. Most of them you follow who fits. There's 2 series in it that you follow multiple POV characters. So if you're not too keen on the Farseer trilogy, you could try Life Ships. I think you might like that better. I prefer Fitz's stories personally, but how would I describe Robin Hobb? A comfort series that emotionally traumatizes you. That's part 2 to women and books I think you need to add to your TBR. Let me know if you're going to read any. Let me know if you have any recommendations below. And I will see you in the next one.